I am so glad you decided to join us today. This is the Words for Life podcast, where we have candid conversations about successes, challenges, and the benefits of strengthening your relationship with God. This will positively impact your life. Welcome to another Words for Life discussion. I'm your host, Terrence Farrell, aka T. Farrell. And first thing I want to do is ask you to subscribe, share, and leave a review. If this Words for Life podcast, if this content has been a blessing to you, if you subscribe, share, or review, it's gonna trigger some algorithms so that it can bless more people. So I'm asking you to do that on whatever platform you're on. Just share it, like it, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. It'll go towards blessing somebody else as well. Now, I want to start off reflecting on, I was reading principles. I have principles written down in my mission statement. And there's one that caught my attention today. It states, always do the best you can, then raise your standard. And I based that off of Colossians 3:23. And in the Amplified, it says this: whatever you do, whatever your task may be, work from the soul. That is, put in your very best effort as something done for the Lord and not for men. And as I reflected on that, because I'm doing a lot of stuff. Today, the oven broke a couple days ago, and my wife said, "Oh man, we got to buy a new oven." I said, "Wait. Maybe I can get in there, figure out what part it is." And I found out what part it was, and we ordered the part. It was only $25, and I got in there, and I'm going underneath, and it took me a lot longer than it should have. And then I had to get back and get in the studio and mix some things, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm supposed to do everything the very best that I can. And, some places I want to take shortcuts because I don't have a lot of time in the day. And then I had to ask myself, am I doing too much? Would it have been more fruitful if I would have called somebody and paid the couple of $100? Because I don't know if I spent more than a couple of $100 in my time. So I just wanted to share that. It's something that you should think about. I'm not saying that, hey, don't do anything, but if you're gonna do everything with your very best, put your very best foot forward as if you was doing it for God, are you doing too many things to put your very best forward in all these areas? Are you becoming, like myself, jack of all trades, master of none? Just a question. I'm just throwing it out there. So I hope that blesses you. I hope that makes you think. My guest today is, a friend from way back. I know I say that a lot, but today, friend from way, way back. His name is Jeff Williamson. Now, you might be saying, I don't know who Jeff Williamson is. Who's he? What does it matter? I'm going to read his bio, or the short version of his bio. Jeff Williamson is the communications director for Orange County government. Prior to his current service at Orange County government, Jeff was the spokesperson for Orange County Sheriff's Office, where he handled hundreds of media cases, including the arrest and trial of Casey Anthony, the death of drum major Robert Champion, Lane Graves, the 2-year-old killed by the alligator on a tourist hotel beach. I remember that one. Prior to his government service, Jeff worked as a broadcast journalist for affiliates of NBC, Fox, CBS, and the New York Times. During that time, he won multiple journalism awards. He also spent a number of years on the staff of GQ magazine. That I didn't know. I didn't know he was on staff of GQ magazine. He is the author of the book Feeling Tall: 8 Short Lessons on Courage and Change. I didn't know that either. He's also written numerous articles for national magazines and is the recipient of the FBI Trilogy Award for excellence in law enforcement and leadership. Jeff holds a bachelor's degree in business and psychology from Oakwood College, now Oakwood University, and a master's degree in communications from New York University. And he has a PhD in sociology from the University of Central Florida, where he also serves as adjunct professor of sociology. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, put your hands together. Help me welcome Jeff Williamson. Jeff, how you doing, man?
I am great, Terrence. I'm great. Thank you for that great introduction, and I'm doing fantastic. Thanks, I appreciate that.
That's cool, man. That's cool. You've done a lot, man. You've gone through you've made some nice moves, some nice opportunities.
Well, I believe, and I'm sure we'll talk about this. I believe that when the opportunity presents itself to you, you must be prepared for it. And preparation is not something that happens overnight. Preparation is a daily activity that you do to better yourself, to be able to be ready when the opportunity comes. Because if the opportunity comes and you're not ready, you don't have the credentials or the experience, you're not going to get selected. So I've always kind of looked at my life as a progression, as steps from here to there, from there to the next step, and looking at it long term. So for me, yeah, that resume reads well. I appreciate that. But really, for me, it's day by day by day. Every step is part of the journey.
Now, was it always clear to you what
Oh,
direction you were going?
no. Lord, no, no. Some days I could not see the road. It was so foggy, and I didn't know. I had to just take each step at a time. Especially when I was doing the PhD. I was 45 years old when I started, and people told me that I was crazy. But you're so old. You've got your master's already. Just sit down. And that road was so tough. And there were students in my class, in my cohort, that were, they had done their masters and their bachelors together. They were 25 years old, and I was 45 years old, and they were single and didn't have a job. And I had 3 kids and a wife, and I was the spokesman for a very, very active law enforcement agency. So I could not see the forest for the trees some days. It was just, what am I doing? I would question myself. What am I doing? What am I doing? Am I doing something that is really going to be beneficial for me down the road? But man, I just kept the blinders on. I kept focused, and I just refused to give up.
Nice, nice. Now, was there or is there a vision, which is why you went back for the PhD or whatever? Was there something that you were shooting for? It's just like, what? Let's just put this is gonna have some use somewhere.
I really did not know what use it would have. I got to be quite honest. I worked for the sheriff's office, and they had this great tuition reimbursement. And I would tell people, I would say, you got to be insane to not use this thing. If they want to give me money to go to school. So I took advantage of that. Every penny, I drained that thing dry, man. I already had my master's. So I applied for the PhD program. And by the way, I didn't get accepted the first time around. It took me calling and going over there and talking to people and taking some additional testing and doing a graduate class into statistics and other things for me to get in. So no, I didn't know what was going to come next, but it has come in so handy for me in terms of some of the things that I'm doing now and that I'll do when I retire. I'm not the 32-year-old guy that you used to know back in New York.
Right.
I mean, down the road, of course, I'm going to want to pivot. And if you're going to pivot, you must be prepared for the turn. And to have been prepared for the turn, you certainly had to have looked back as to where it was coming and to be ready for it. So, no, to answer your question, no, it was not always clear to me. It was just a calculation that I made that one day I'm going to need this thing, and I have the opportunity to take advantage of it. So that's exactly what I did.
Nice. So now, in your journey, because we all have principles. I've got a list of them. Is there any one of the principles that you feel is a foundation for your success?
I would think that the ability, and I always tell my kids this, the ability to pivot. And I understand that people have this thing where this is where I'm going. This is my goal. I'm not going to be deterred. This is the golden ring is there. I'm going after it. And I get that. And I think that everyone should kind of have that spirit in them. But I think one of the things you got to be is flexible, right? Not rigid in anything. It doesn't work in a marriage. Your rigidity is not going to work in a marriage. You know this.
Yes, I do.
You can be rigid if you want to in a marriage. It's not what does it profit me to be rigid? Yes, I have some things that I like a certain way, but at the end of the day, perhaps I may need to think a different way and to pivot. And there are people that I meet in life, and either I supervise them or they supervise me, or I work for this person. And if I decided that all I would do would be to stay on the same track, I'd never be successful. So I think that the ability to know when it's time to change, move, pivot, think a different way, kind of keep your goal in mind. Now you got the goal down the road, but to think, okay, maybe I'll turn on this, and then I'll get back on track. I'll lose this battle, but I ultimately want to win the war.
Right.
So the ability to be flexible. I mean, I'm not saying you got to break all the time, but certainly to be able to bend to a certain degree, I think has always been a key to success. And if I may, let me go into a people example of this, is that sometimes people come into your life who, especially if they're a supervisor and who may have a certain way of doing things, and you got to work with these people, 40 hours a week, 80 hours a pay period. And you see how they are, and it frustrates you. Well, I'm not changing anybody, but the person I can change is Jeff. I can always change Jeff, Terrence. I can always look and say, okay, what can I do differently to get along better with this person? What can I do differently to have a successful relationship? Because we're working together every day. We sit in the same meetings, 6, 7 times, every other day or so. What do I need to do? So the ability to look at oneself, to look at one's situation, and to say, maybe on this one, let me just think a little bit differently, take other things into consideration. To me, that has really done me well in life, because I'm a short guy. People have certain opinions about, when they see that they're taller or you or bigger than you, and they're gonna, roll over you or whatever the case may be.
Right.
I look at those people. I see the direction they're coming. I can step right out of your way, and I can get right back on path, and it's no big deal to me. I'm giving you a long answer to a short question,
right?
But I think it's an important answer, especially as it relates to me talking to younger people about success. You can stay on that road, and that road is probably a good road, but you may have to take a little detour and get back on it.
Right. And I like what you said. There's a key there where you said if somebody's not acting right, or they're a little abrasive or whatever, you figure out how to change you. Now, normally the thought process I would have is like, okay, I got to get out of here because I'm not dealing with that guy. And you leave and you bounce and you go to the next place and you go to the next place and you try to look for this place where it's going to be, my perfect environment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I have a person that works for me right now. Great person. I would hate to lose her. I love her to pieces. She comes to me often about, maybe one day I'm going to have to leave this job. I said, listen, the one thing you're going to take to your next job, and the one after that, and the one after that is you.
Yep.
You're going to every one of those jobs yourself. And there are going to be people like Jeff and others that are going to meet you there. And the question is, are you going to be able to change you and be flexible enough to deal with other people? And I know it's hard, especially if you have a lifestyle and you've seen a parent and it's so innate in you to not want to be flexible. It's hard. It's hard to try and change when you're this old. But I really think that it's a common principle that we don't teach our children. We don't teach people who are coming up in life, corporate environment, private environment, religious environment. And if they can learn that one thing, let me be flexible. Let me look at me. Introspection. It's a word I learned in my 5th grade spelling class. Let me look at me and see what I can do to change Jeff.
Right.
Because I wouldn't be married to the same girl for all these years if I was, there's no way we would still be together.
Right.
Because, she was flexible, I was flexible, and it's worked. So you're right. I'm not going to change anybody, but I can sure change Jeff Williamson.
Nice. No, I like it. Beautiful advice. Let me ask this. Out of all the things that you've done, what's one of your most memorable success stories?
I think when I first got into television news, because I was, if we can go into story hour.
Yeah.
If we
Yes,
go to
sir.
story hour, I remember I was living in New York. Yeah, you may know the story fairly well. I mean, I was living in New York. I'd been an accountant. I was working at GQ magazine, great place. Worked in GQ, did some stuff for Vogue and Essence, and I mean Essence, but Vanity Fair and all those great magazines. And but I was an accountant, and I don't think I was a very good one. I know I wasn't a very good one. And my boss's boss, we were the GQ was growing and growing and growing, and people were getting promoted. I wasn't getting promoted, and I said to my boss, "Hey man, why am I not getting promoted?" He said, "Jeff, great guy, loved having you around, but on your best day, you're an average accountant." Ah, that hurt, you know.
Yeah.
But he really, and to this day, he's still my friend. And it was a comment that he made really out of his observance of me and his love for me, because he really did like me, and he wanted me to do something that I would find, better for my career track and all that. So I went to NYU. I knew I loved television news. I was a news junkie. I love watching reporters, and I said, man, I really would love to get into television news. It was a dream of mine. So I went back to school. I got my master's degree in communication at NYU. I studied under a reporter. She helped me make a resume tape, and it was tough. Getting into news is a tough business. I was 33 years old. I wasn't a 22-year-old coming out of some of these big film schools, but I was coming out of NYU, which was very helpful. And I sent out, back in those days, everything was not cassette tapes, VHS tapes.
Oh, yes.
So you had to make a VHS tape and literally mail it. This is archaic. This sounds right. I had to make a VHS tape.
Yes.
I had to put it in an envelope with a letter. One of these things.
Yeah. Yes,
I had to
sir.
put the tape in with a letter to the news director, who I found and researched through, not online, but through other methods.
Right.
And I would mail it. So I mailed out 100 resume tapes.
Wow.
And I got hired at the NBC station in Panama City, a little teeny tiny market. But those are good, because those are the markets where you can make mistakes. You can't make mistakes in New York; you get fired fast.
Right.
But in a little teeny tiny market in Florida, they're more forgiving. So that was perhaps that big switch for me, saying, okay, this is not working, Jeff. This is not working. Everybody loves you. People think you're great. But for your career, you need to do something that you're going to be good at. So I pivoted, and I made that transition, and the rest. And it's not bragging, but the rest really is history. I mean, the way that my life was turned around. I'm a very spiritual person. How God just turned my life around in that moment, and was helped me to get into that particular field. And I succeeded. I won a bunch of awards, and the rest really is history. And that's probably my biggest success, was the decision to say, this is not working for me. Not working. What are you going to do about it? And I touch with a lot of people. People always come to me, I don't like my job. I don't like this. Okay. What are you actively going to do about it?
Right.
You can tell me how frustrated you are. I'll listen. I'm all ears. I'm a very good listener. I've got a bachelor's degree in psychology. I can listen all day to you. At the end of the day, I'm going to ask you the same question every single time. And that question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to go back to school? Are you going to study something? Are you going to fill out an application to that school? Are you going to learn about business so you can open that? You're great at flowers? You love flowers? Oh, you study, you find some florist you can study under. Look at how you can open a business. What are you going to do about where you are? So I know I'm giving you all these long answers, Terrence, but
no, it's good. It's good information.
I'm telling you that for me, it just makes sense for me to ask myself, what am I going to do about my situation? Clearly I wasn't the best accountant, but I've always been pretty good gift of gab. Always liked details. Always loved people, and that it was a perfect career for me. So getting into television news, making that transition, that hard turn. I didn't go from radio to TV or from newspaper to TV. I went from accounting to TV. It was a very difficult turn to make. So I'm really, really proud of that. Everything else from then was kind of steps were ordered, if you will. But I really had to make a significant a change, a 180 to be able to do this.
Nice. And it also shows the perseverance also, because 100 tapes, man, with the letters and all of that.
Yes.
That's a lot of
And I
pushing,
have
man.
all the rejection. I can show you I kept all the rejection letters from
You
all the
kept them?
stations. But I remember that one that I got, and I
Yeah.
was so thrilled. And as much as I love New York, that's when I left New York and went down to Florida.
Okay. Okay. Now, if I flip the question now, what's one of the toughest things God's brought you through?
Oof. Um, well, I've made so many mistakes, Terrence. I don't even know where to start, man. If you're talking about challenges and things some things that I've learned and that I've done, perhaps I remember one. If I can give an example of one thing, I've just learned a lot of big lessons. One of them was to learn when to keep my mouth shut and when to not talk, because I always like talking to people, and I've had to learn in certain occasions. One time I was covering this, I was in this one story, and it was a homicide of a woman who they did not know who killed her, and I was the reporter. I was at the scene. It was in Sarasota County. I was a reporter in Sarasota, Florida. I was a reporter on the scene for my particular station, and we had gone to the funeral of her. We were outside. Reporters were giving us safe location. The church had given us to report from, because it's rare to have a murder this brutal in Sarasota. Sarasota is a very rich Florida county. People just don't get killed there. So I was doing this particular story, and we had heard that because of she had crossed state lines, that the FBI was involved, or more. It wasn't just the local police. There were others that were involved in looking into her death. So this is right when, Terrence, you may remember this revolution, when you went from wired communication to the camera to a transistor type, where there was a receiver and the transmitter. You're wearing the transmitter. They've got the receiver. Well, I was talking pure foolishness about, the FBI are inside the church. What I did not know was that the frequency of my microphone was the frequency of the church. So the people in the church heard everything that I was saying, and people came running out and says, "Which one of you guys are talking about the FBI being in the building, blah, blah, blah. Everything you're saying is being heard in the church." We had to turn the church volume down because the members heard everything that you were saying. Thank God I wasn't cursing or anything
Right,
like that.
right.
It was still bad enough where I learned that, sometimes even if some things are true, they don't need to be said. And you don't know who's listening. I've learned in that one instance, I learned, sometimes I just need to keep my mouth shut. I just need to be
Wow.
quiet. It was embarrassing. I got back to the station, and everybody had heard about it, and my news director let me have it, close the door. And it really was a terminating offense. They really could have terminated me, but thank goodness they liked me. They just sent me home for the day without pay and said, "Don't be a moron next time. Watch your mouth, understand the surroundings. It could have been somebody else or something else that you said that was offensive." So I learned a lot that day. And to this day, I keep that. You know what? Maybe I'll just keep my mouth closed on this one.
Yeah.
That's profited me greatly, my friend. Greatly.
I understand. That's a good lesson. That's a
Yes, it
good
is.
lesson.
Yes, it is. Embarrassing,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Yeah.
But it was a good lesson.
Wow. Yeah, it's a good thing you didn't get terminated.
Yes.
That sounds like one of those
if it had
offenses.
been me that was the manager, I probably would have fired somebody.
Yeah.
It's like, you should have known better than that. You know that, those are just things you keep to yourself, or you talk about in the truck or back at the station, but not in the field.
Right.
Yeah. So bad, horrible lesson, but one that has suited me well.
Okay. So now I know you run into tons of people, and along the course of your journeys, you run into people. I would assume you run into people that you go, that looks like a younger version of me. I see myself in that person. What kind of advice would you give a person that reminds you of you?
I would probably tell him, don't be so hard on yourself.
Interesting.
I am so hard, Terrence, on me. I've gotten better at it, but there's nobody harder on me than me. I beat myself to the point earlier in my life where I just sometimes just couldn't sleep. So how could I have done something so stupid, or how could I have made that mistake, or how could I have said this, or oh man, I beat myself up so badly as a young person. And the truth of the matter is that people really ain't paying that much attention to you. You think that you say something or do something that's dumb and whatever, and people are like, oh, okay, whatever. But you perceive it as this big monstrous thing. And I was just very hard on myself in the decisions that I made. Some of the people that I hung out with, before my wife, of course, girls that I dated. I'm like, how could I have dated that? What was I thinking? And why would I do that? And why would I say that in this scenario? So I would tell the younger Jeff, I said, listen, man, you're going to make some mistakes. Some of them are going to hurt. And some of them are going to be big. But it's going to be okay. Don't beat yourself up. Don't lose sleep over it. Forgive yourself. Learn to forgive yourself. And then to a large degree, the way we treat ourselves, I think, is a microcosm of how we treat others. So sometimes I can be kind of judgmental and not want to forgive others for the things that they do. And I heard somebody say once, he had seen his daughter fall off of a swing. He was pulling in from work. He saw his daughter fall off a swing, and she falls. Just as he's driving up, she falls off. She gets up. Her lip is bleeding. It's cut. He grabs her, throws her in the car, and he drives like a maniac to the hospital. He's cutting people off, driving left, right. People are blowing at him. He's, going around. And it occurs to him when he gets to the hospital, he says, I'm going to be forgiving now of everyone that I see driving crazy, because I don't know what that person has been through. So I'm going to forgive that person, because that person is me right now.
Right.
And I think that if when you learn to forgive others, especially insignificant stuff, it's really very, very helpful. So I would tell Jeff, younger Jeff, forgive yourself, but learn to forgive others as well. Learn to forgive others. It just does you so much good when you forgive. To forgive people is a relief and a release. When I forgive you for something that I've been holding on to, I got a grudge on something you did to me 10 years ago, I thought you was flirting with my wife or something, so I'm mad at you. I'm like, man. So learn. I would tell younger Jeff, hey man, just give yourself a break, bro. Give yourself a break. It's gonna be all right.
And so many people take pride in that. Like they feel like, I'm tough on myself so I can get to the next level. And I'm tough on the people around me because I'm making them better. And
I'm bringing it up to my level.
Yeah. And they wear it like a badge of honor.
Yes. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being very honest with people, being very matter of fact with them. But sometimes people just need to be flat forgiven for things that they have done. And Lord knows I've been forgiven. I was forgiven for that incident. When I made that big mistake, my news director said, "Look, go home, but come back tomorrow. We're going to do better tomorrow." Right, Jeff? I was like, "Yes, man." I was in tears when I got home, man. I was in tears when I got home.
I could imagine.
And, but she forgave me. Next day came back. You good, Jeff? Next story. All good. I was forgiven. So, and you quoted some biblical texts. So let me go there a little bit, because the Bible says, if you can't forgive somebody, you expect me to forgive you? Is that fair? You won't forgive your brother for some little thing he did, but I'm supposed to forgive you for everything you've done? It doesn't really work that way, in my opinion. Even if you're not religious, even in the natural world, it does not work that way, where you can always take and not give back and not forgive people.
No, that's
your question.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's something that sometimes, like with me, it sneaks up on me. I think of myself as a forgiving guy. And then, it's just like, I forgive, but I can't believe they did that. Like, okay, they should have known not to do that. No, I'm a forgiving guy, but come on, that was retarded.
That was bad, man. I ain't forgiving that one.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, they should have known better. And it's like, oh man, who have I become?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely, man. So, man, I enjoy talking to you, man.
This is awesome, man.
It's been so long.
We on a phone call one day.
Yes, sir. So let me ask this. Yeah. What's next for you now?
So, I work for the mayor of Orange County. I'm the communications director for the county. We've got some big COVID things going on. Florida has been very much in the news. But we're doing good in Orange County. We got one of the lower rates of orange. We've just done everything right, I believe. I've got a good mayor who I work for. I've got another 2 years on this term, and hopefully he'll get reelected. And then I'll have 4 more years with him. I'd love to stay with him. He's the best boss I have ever had. I'm talking about kind and forgiving, tough. He's a mayor, so there's standards, and the standards are here.
Right.
And he didn't bring me along with him, because he thought I was cute. He brought me along with him because he thought that I could do the job. So hopefully he's pleased with my performance. I'll stay with him for another 4 years. By this time I'll be in my early 60s, and then I've got a PhD. I've always wanted to teach. So I think I'll teach and consult and speak and do some other things down the road. And try and keep my health together. That's really, really important.
Yeah.
Black man, I got to try and keep my health together. So far, thank the Lord, nothing big has taken place. But, I finished the PhD, but I feel there's a lot in me still to help people, to motivate people, to talk to people, especially kids. I'm an adjunct professor at the UCF. I haven't taught in the past year or so, but I'll be teaching again in the fall. And, I just love that environment. So even though I'll be 62 or 63 when I retire in a few years, I'm going to work for another 10 years, man. I'm going to work because I cannot sit down. So I'll probably work, teach, consult. I'm working on my second book.
Nice.
The Sociology of Courage. Hopefully that'll be out by, if not this Christmas, sometime next year. But I'm working on my second book. It's more of a work of academics than it is my first book, which is more work of motivation. So hopefully that book will be out here in the next year or so, and continue to write and, be a good husband. Try to be a good husband, Terrence. And
Yeah.
Even though my kids are getting old, I'm still trying to do that right. And when you first came on, you were just talking about, doing things better each time and getting better at things.
Yes.
And, a husband should get better. A father should get better. A manager should get better. A mayor should get better. We really should step our game up. And it's not always about the money. And, it is about the satisfaction of knowing you ain't better. It's just not going to be better than me. I'm going to do this better than anybody else is going to do it. And I can impart it, and I can effect change in my community, my home, my church, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of my goal, is to just, move my life on forward down the road, and going back to our initial point, and to pivot when I have to pivot. Maybe something, hey man, I may end up working on a nuclear sub somewhere. Who knows? Who knows, man? I don't know anything about nuclear subs, but who knows? But I need to be willing to pivot to whatever it is. I believe that God works through open doors. He opens the door for you and says, okay, this door is open, bro. You don't have to go through it, but if you don't go through it, it's going to close. And another may not open for a while. So I'm always looking for what is the next open door for me and for my family.
Okay. Yeah, and that was going to be one of my questions when you were talking before, because you were talking about pivoting, and so many times, especially in the religious community, it's just like, well, I'm not going to pivot until God says, go ye this way. And it's like, he opened the door, and it's like, well, God didn't audibly say, or, I didn't get the pastor didn't say, you know what, I see you now as a communications director. And so it's almost like, do you ever second guess, like, okay, God, was this where you wanted me to go, or this? How do you deal with that balance?
So for me, the doors sometimes have just been so wide open that I just feel like God is saying, really, it's right here in front of you. And and the also thing to recognize is the closing of the door, which may be a bit more important, because sometimes where you are is really not where you need to be. The door was closing on my accounting career. Nobody would have wanted to hire me with the recommendation that I would have gotten from this guy or from the boss that I had at the time. The door was closing as well. So I could feel it coming, Terrence, slowly but surely.
Right.
And then the NYU thing opens up. I was working in Manhattan. It was the A train. I just jumped on the A train and went right down NYU, got that degree. I met someone in class who introduced me to, watch this. I met someone in class who introduced me to the person who helped me do my resume tape. It was just a girl, white female, lovely lady, be sitting in the back, cutting up, she and I. She said, you know what, you'd be a really good television news reporter. You would be good. I said, well, that's what I'm thinking about doing. She said, I know this lady. You see that open door, Terrence? I know this lady who helps people transition from their current. She said she does primarily helps newspaper and radio people get into television news. But maybe she can help you. Here's her name and number. Tell her I gave you the number and give her a call. Doors are open. I do that with her. Send the resume tapes out. Hey, Jeff, come on down. I think you're the right guy for us. Open door. Other stations. I was a reporter in Panama City. The door opened up for me to go to Sarasota, which I loved. Then to Knoxville, Tennessee, where I spent 6 years at the CBS. That was fantastic. I loved it. That door opened, and I could feel the other doors closing behind me where I was, meaning that I was getting ceilinged out on how much they were going to pay me. They didn't want me to be the anchor. They only let me sub, and I wanted to do more stuff. So I felt doors closing. When all the other ones were opening up, I just say, Lord, is this the door for me? And fortunately for me, I had a very flexible wife and children who were like, okay, let's do it. So I think for me, it was the recognition of the fact. I don't think that God is shy. I don't think he plays games with, oh, gee, door number one, and let's make a deal. Door number one, door number two, door number. I don't think he's like that. I think he basically says, see this big wide open door that I'm creating for you? Pay attention to this door. Don't ignore this door. And I think that what happens is that we are so focused on something else that we don't want to even look at this big wide opportunity that's sitting right in front of us. One day I will tell you how I got my job at the sheriff's office. I'll tell you real quick. I had to come. I don't know how much time we've got.
No, it's fine.
I came to Orlando basically looking for another news job. I hadn't intended to get into the public relations side of law enforcement, which is where I ended up. But years before, I had met a young lady. Like 10 years before, I met a young lady and I was just speaking at a workshop. Well, this young lady would often take her child to a friend's home who babysat children. And this woman had a daughter, my daughter's age. So one day she dropped her children off at this woman's home. And my daughter was over there, and my daughter Candace looks exactly like me. So she sees this girl that looks just like me and says, I met a guy that looked just like her like 10 years ago. So she sees my daughter, recognizes me in her face, and the lady says, no, you don't know her. And she said, no, you don't know this child or her father. And she said, what is his name? And she said, his name is Jeff. She said, yeah, his name is Jeff Williamson. He spoke at a seminar, that I was at 10 years ago. Wow. So she sees my daughter, recognizes her face, gets my information, calls me. She's leaving the job at the sheriff's office and says, you should apply. And I was like, I want to get back in the television news. And she says, well, just give it a shot. So I interviewed for it. 88 people had interviewed for this job. 88. And I was I didn't know anybody. I was the outsider. Everybody else knew the captain, knew the sheriff, knew all these people. Terrence, I didn't know anybody. And of the 88, got dwindled down to like 40, and then to 20, and then to 5, and then to 4, and then I didn't get the job. But the number one person who got the job said, I'm taking a job in Philadelphia, and I fell into the job. So that door opened so obviously for me. Right, to answer to your question, it opened so obviously for me that how could I ignore that something that overt? If I missed that one, shame on me. Shame on me. I think that it's crazy to think that the opportunities are just not right there in front of us.
But you could have said, nah, I'm not going to go for that. I'm looking for television.
Yeah, exactly.
And you would have missed that whole.
I'm looking for television. I'm gonna stay on television. And man, let me tell you something. I was at the sheriff's office for 12 years, and it was so much fun. They gave me I got a free car. I got, I became a deputy. I know this isn't on my resume, but I'm actually a sworn law enforcement officer as well. So they let me, put on a badge and, drive fast and all. It was a great job. But then the sheriff, and this is Providence. The sheriff then runs for mayor. Right? The sheriff runs for mayor and wins. and then says, well, Jeff, would you come along with me to become my communications director at the county government? I supervise maybe 5 people at the sheriff's office. I supervise maybe 65 people between full-time contract workers now at the mayor's office. I have a humongous team.
Right.
So if you're faithful in some of those little things, you know, and you find favor in those little things and you do them well. And you were talking about this earlier and when you were first talking. You do those little things well when nobody's watching. You do this right when nobody is watching. And people are watching, believe me.
Yeah.
And for me, he's the first African-American mayor of Orange County, Florida. The first one. I'm the first African-American communications director for Orange County government in Florida. It is because of what we just discussed, being faithful in some of those little tiny things, and then finding favor with people and just doing your best every day. There's so much in that to unpack.
Yeah. Nice. So let people know, how can they support or follow you? I don't know if you're on social media or whatever, but I know you got a book out, so.
Yes. So you can just go to my Facebook page, what's my Facebook page? Dr. Jeff Williamson. Oh, man, I forget my Facebook page. At this current time, working for the mayor, I'm not even really doing anything major. But if you want a copy of the book, Feeling Tall, 8 Short Lessons on Courage and Change, you can just email me at jeff@jeffwilliamson.com. That's my website. Probably the best way to get in contact with me is jeffwilliamson.com is my website. But to email me is jeff@jeffwilliamson.com. You need an inspirational word or a copy of my book or some of the little things that I've got online regarding just how to deport yourself, how to keep yourself encouraged. It's all there on my website.
Nice. I like that. Nice. I might get a copy of the book myself.
I'll send you one, brother. Don't worry about it. Just send me your address. I'll send you one.
All right, man. All right.
Well, because I love your wife, not because of you so much, but because the wife is awesome.
That's cool.
Because of the missus.
Well, hey, I'm glad I married her. Any final thoughts or words of advice you want to leave with listeners?
No, I think we've covered it, Terrence. I think that hopefully I've said the things that are important. Understand yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. And when it's time to move.
Nice. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Thanks again for sharing. Thanks for the words of wisdom.
Awesome. It's been fantastic, Terrence. Thank you, man. I'm proud of you as well, my friend.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I'll be paying attention moving forward. I've been ignorant as to the progress you've made. Not anymore. I'm going to be following you moving forward.
Okay, cool. I appreciate it. Definitely. I want to let listeners know, if you want to be a part of a group of positive people moving forward. My partner and I, Dr. Sean Thomas and I, we focus on helping ordinary people do extraordinary things. We have a website, BeMoreToday.com. www, you spell it all out, BeMoreToday. We got free workouts on YouTube. You can download Words for Life tracks. That's something that I do where I take, let's say, a point or two from messages that were delivered, either sermons or motivational speakers. I produce a little music behind it. So you got like a 6-minute something you can listen to that motivates you while working out, walking around the block, whatever. We've got positive apparel that we're doing, positive words on it. Just check out www.BeMoreToday.com. Again, I want to ask you to like, share, leave a comment, leave a positive review. We appreciate all of that stuff. And we're gonna leave you. I always like to leave off with a Words for Life track. One of the tracks I was talking about, that's gonna play right after this. And again, we hope something that you heard on this podcast inspired you to make the rest of your life the best part of your life. And with that, we're out.
You are a divine creation with a heroic mission. You are not you're not a package of protoplasm. You're not an accidental biological mistake. You are intended by a creator who wanted somebody just like you to exist in time right now. You could have been born 40 years ago or 40 years in the future, but God wanted to drop you in time right now. Your gifts, your abilities, your talents, your look, your disposition, your personality, your ups, your downs, your idiosyncrasies, your habits, your problems. God wanted somebody just like you. You don't look like you look by accident. You look like you look because it's directly related to your function. So stop tripping on how you look. You are not a mistake. So hold on. I wish I had more hair. I wish my nose was thin. No. You are not a biological freak. You are intended by God. Now, I don't know about y'all. Believe me, I am not conceited nor cocky, but I am confident. Amen. And I'm going to tell you like it is. Isaiah 43 says, I was created to bring glory to God. That's the Bible. He created me for him, not for myself. Therefore, God does not make junk. If that's true, then I need to celebrate. When I look in the mirror, I just say, go Jesus, you created all over yourself, Jesus. You're mighty good. I don't know about y'all. Y'all keep tripping if y'all want to, but I am a divine creation for a heroic mission. I look like I look because I had to do what I do. God needed a short, handsome, bald-headed man. In other words, I was born in 1959. God knew way back in eternity when I was going to be born and what I was going to do once I show up. Therefore, God becomes responsible to put in me what I need to have to do what he's going to ask me to do. I'm about to go somewhere. In other words, see, what my responsibility, what will be my mission? I don't know yet. God knows, and therefore, God has to pre-pack me. Max Lucado, however you want to say it, in his book, Cure for the Common Life, wonderful book, he says when you get ready to go on a vacation, depending on where you're going, determines how you're going to pack your suitcase. Y'all gonna shout in a minute. I promise you. See, knowing the outcome, knowing your destiny, knowing your destination, knowing that you might be going to Florida, knowing you might be going to Canada, knowing the season and knowing the climatic temperature where you got to show up depends on what you're gonna put in your suitcase. Before you get there, you anticipate being there. Therefore, you gotta start pre-packing your suitcase. All I'm trying to say way back in the glory, God, the God of the universe, before you ever showed up, when you were being created, he was pre-packing you. He was putting stuff in you that he knew you would need way before you would ever show up. Y'all ain't feeling me yet. He knew the wife you would need to marry. He knew the husband you would need. I can't take credit for this. All I can say is give God the glory, because God pre-packed you the same way. If you stop tripping and get out of your way and let God bless you, you sabotaging your own destiny, not understanding your mission or your responsibility. I had one question on this side of glory to ask God. I would just simply say, God, what is it that you want me to do with my life? Period. And I would spend every ounce of energy that I have to do it until it killed me.